Welcome back to Beyond the Known. It is the second to last episode in our series on timeless Egypt, and today we're going to be talking all about the tomb of Tutankhamun.
Ooh, exciting.
So this is a young pharaoh who, had a pretty short reign, but ended up becoming one of the most famous figures from ancient Egypt.
Right.
And that's really because of this huge discovery in 1922 of his tomb and the fascinating and kind of spooky stories that came after that.
Yes, very mysterious.
Yeah, so he really could have been just a footnote in history.
Right.
But he ended up being this global phenomenon, and it's really all because of what was buried with him.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting how these things happen.
Yeah, it really is.
You can go down in history for all sorts of reasons.
Totally. So today we're going to be looking at the key points in Tutankhamun's life.
Okay.
His death, and then, of course, this amazing discovery of his tomb.
Yeah.
And we want to try to paint a picture of why this guy is still so interesting to us all these years later. So to get started, who was Tutankhamun?
Well, he was a pharaoh of Egypt's 18th dynasty.
Okay.
And his reign began around 1332 BCE.
Okay.
And something that always amazes me is that he became pharaoh when he was just 8 or 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
That is
So young.
Yeah.
To have that responsibility.
Imagine all that pressure.
I know.
Ew.
And our research material actually points out that he was born during a really chaotic time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
In Egyptian history.
It was during the reign of Akhenaten.
Right.
Now, Akhenaten, he tried to completely change Egypt's religion.
Oh, wow.
He wanted to move away from their traditional beliefs, which were polytheistic, meaning they worshipped many gods.
Right.
And he wanted to make everyone worship just one god.
Okay.
Ekton's the sun disk.
So like a single god.
Exactly.
Instead of the many gods that they had before.
Yeah, it was a really radical idea for the time.
And how'd that go over?
Not well.
Okay.
It caused a lot of upheaval in Egyptian society.
Makes sense. Well, it's interesting because Tutankhamun's name kind of reflects this whole religious shift, right?
Exactly.
He was originally named Tutankhamun.
Right, which means living image of Aten.
Oh, okay.
You can really see Akhenaten's influence there.
Yeah. But then when he became pharaoh, things changed pretty dramatically, didn't they?
That's right. He and his advisors decided to undo all of Akhenaten's changes.
Wow. So a complete reversal.
Pretty much.
And they brought back all the traditional gods.
With Amun as the most important god.
And that's where the name change comes in.
Right. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, which means living image of Amun.
So his name really shows this return to the old ways.
It does, yeah.
It's like a symbol of his whole reign, this attempt to go back to how things were.
Yeah, even though his reign was pretty short.
It was, yeah. He died when he was only 18 or 19.
That's right.
So obviously that leads to the big question. How did he die?
Yeah, that's a mystery that's fascinated people for a long time.
And for years, people thought he was murdered, right?
Yeah. Well, early examinations, they did find some evidence that looked like blunt force trauma.
Okay.
So, yeah, people definitely speculated about assassination and things like that.
Makes sense.
It's a very dramatic story, right?
It is, yeah. Much more exciting than just dying of old age.
Exactly.
But I guess our understanding of that has kind of evolved over time, hasn't it?
It has. With modern technology, we've been able to get a much clearer picture of what might have happened.
So what do we know now?
Well, later CT scans actually suggested that the damage that looked like blunt force trauma probably happened after his death.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe during the mummification process or just from the mummy being handled over the years.
Makes sense. That's a long time to be, lying around.
Right.
So what do scientists think caused his death then?
Well, the current thinking is that it was probably due to natural causes.
Okay.
He seems to have had a lot of health problems.
Oh, really?
Yeah, DNA analysis has shown that he had scoliosis and a clubfoot on his left leg.
Wow. So he would have had trouble walking.
He probably would have, yeah. And they actually found a bunch of walking sticks in his tomb.
Oh, wow. So that supports that theory.
Yeah, it seems very likely he needed them to get around.
That's incredible. So we're talking about scoliosis, a clubfoot. What else was going on?
Well, the DNA analysis also showed signs of malaria.
Oh, wow.
So he definitely wasn't in great health.
It sounds like he was dealing with a lot.
Yeah, poor guy.
And to top it all off, our research material says he may have also fractured his leg.
Right, and that would have been shortly before his death.
Oh, no.
So imagine that.
On top of everything else.
On top of everything else, yeah, a broken leg. It's not surprising that he died so young.
No, it really isn't. So it seems like the story of his death is actually much more tragic than a murder mystery.
I think so, yeah.
It's kind of a reminder that even pharaohs,
Yeah.
with all their power and wealth, they were still human.
They were still vulnerable to all sorts of things.
Totally. So how do we know all this about him?
Well, that takes us to the incredible discovery of his tomb.
Right, which is kind of what he's most famous for.
Exactly.
So paint us a picture of this discovery.
All right, so picture this. It's November 4th, 1922,
Okay.
and we're in the Valley of the Kings.
Okay, that's where they buried a lot of the pharaohs, right?
It's this amazing place in Egypt filled with tombs. And there's this British archaeologist, Howard Carter, and he's been searching for Tutankhamun's tomb for years.
Years.
Yeah, funded by this guy named Lord Carnarvon.
Okay, and he actually found it.
He did.
Wow.
He found the entrance to the tomb,
That's incredible.
which is known as KV62, by the way.
PV62.
Yeah. Archaeologists use this system to keep track of all the tombs in the Valley of the Kings.
Okay, so it's like a cataloging system.
Exactly.
So KV62, that's Tutankhamun's tomb.
That's the one.
And I know at this point a lot of people thought that all the big discoveries in the Valley of the Kings had already been made.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people thought that there wasn't anything left to find.
Like they had already combed through everything.
Yeah, pretty much. And Carter was actually running out of funding.
Oh, no?
Yeah, this was basically his last chance.
Wow, what a story. So what did they find at the entrance to this tomb?
Well, they found these steps that led down to a sealed doorway.
Okay.
And the amazing thing was that the doorway still had its original rope and clay seal.
So it was completely untouched.
Yeah, after all these centuries.
Which is super rare, right?
Incredibly rare. Most of the tombs had been robbed long ago.
Right, because they were full of treasure.
Yeah, exactly.
So to find one that was still sealed,
It's amazing.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, you can imagine how excited Carter must have been.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he did something really interesting, didn't he?
He did. He decided to wait.
To wait.
Yeah, he wanted Lord Carnarvon to be there for the opening.
Oh, okay.
So he waited for weeks for Carnarvon to travel from England.
I can't even imagine waiting that
It
long.
must have been so hard.
Knowing what you might find.
Right, the anticipation.
So when did they finally open the tomb?
It was on November 26th, 1922.
Okay.
They carefully broke through a second sealed door, and they looked into this room called the antechamber.
Antechamber.
Yeah, it was like an entrance hall within the tomb.
Okay.
And what they saw was mind-blowing.
What was it?
Over 5,000 artifacts.
5,000.
Yeah, just crammed into this one room.
That's insane.
Wow.
I can't even picture that. And apparently Carnarvon was so eager, he asked Carter, "Can you see anything?"
He did.
And what did Carter say?
He said, yes, wonderful things.
I love that.
It's such a perfect response.
Yeah. So what kind of things were in this tomb?
Oh, there was all sorts of amazing stuff.
Like what?
Golden statues,
Wow.
chariots, thrones, jewelry.
It sounds like a king's ransom.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then there were also these everyday objects,
Oh, interesting.
which give us a glimpse into what life was like back then.
So like personal belongings and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, there was the golden death mask.
Right. The one that's become so iconic.
It's one of the most famous artifacts from ancient Egypt.
And this whole discovery was just so important for our understanding of ancient Egypt.
It really was.
Because this tomb was almost completely intact.
Yeah, that's what makes it so special.
It gave us this really unique insight into their burial practices and their culture and everything.
It really did. And the layout of the tomb itself is also really interesting.
Oh, how so?
Well, you have the antechamber, like we talked about, and then there was this annex, which was just packed with stuff.
So maybe like a storage room?
Yeah, that's the idea. And then you have the burial chamber,
Okay.
which is where the sarcophagus was,
Right.
and then a smaller room called the treasury.
The treasury, I bet that was interesting.
Oh, yeah, full of valuable stuff.
And it's interesting because Tutankhamun's tomb is actually pretty small compared to some of the other royal tombs.
It is, yeah.
And that's led to some interesting theories, hasn't
It
it? What are some of the theories about why it's so small?
Well, one theory is that it wasn't originally meant for him.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, maybe it was built for someone else.
Like who?
Maybe I.
Hi.
Yeah, he was Tutankhamun's advisor,
Oh,
and he ended up becoming pharaoh after Tutankhamun died.
Oh, I see.
So maybe they just had to quickly repurpose this smaller tomb for Tutankhamun.
Because he died so young.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's another theory
Oh.
about At's tomb, which is known as KV23. It's actually much bigger than Tutankhamun's tomb.
Okay.
And they have some similar architectural features.
Oh, interesting.
So some people think that maybe the two tombs were switched.
Switched.
Yeah, maybe the bigger tomb was actually meant for Tutankhamun.
Okay.
But then when he died suddenly, I just took the bigger tomb for himself.
Wow, that's a really interesting theory.
It is, yeah.
I like that one. Although it's just a theory, right?
Right, we don't have any definitive proof.
Well, it's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, trying to piece together the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got this incredible discovery, this intact tomb full of amazing artifacts. But there's another layer to this story, isn't there?
There is, the curse.
The curse of the pharaoh.
It's pretty famous.
Yeah, it's become legendary.
So what's the story there?
Well, soon after the tomb was opened, some of the people involved in the excavation started dying.
Oh, no. Like, how soon after?
Pretty soon after. And these deaths were often under mysterious circumstances.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it really fueled the idea that there was some kind of curse.
And the most famous example is probably Lord Carnarvon, right?
Definitely. He died just a few months after the tomb was opened.
Wow, that's so soon.
It was.
So how did he die?
He died from blood poisoning after he was bitten by a mosquito. And the newspapers really went wild with the story.
Of course they did.
They reported all these dramatic details.
Like what?
Well, apparently there was a power outage in Cairo at the exact moment he died.
Oh, that's spooky.
And his dog, back in England, howled and died at the same time.
No way. That's what they said.
Those are some crazy coincidences.
Yeah, if they're true.
But Carnarvon wasn't the only one, right?
No, there were others.
Like who?
Well, there was George J. Gould, who was a wealthy visitor to the tomb.
Okay.
He died not long after. And then Carnarvon's half-brother, Aubrey Herbert.
Okay.
He also died. And then there was the X-ray technician, Archibald Douglas Reed.
Okay.
And Carter's secretary, Richard Bethel.
And they all died under mysterious circumstances.
Well, Bethel's death was particularly suspicious.
Oh, wow. This is a lot of people.
It is, yeah.
It's easy to see why people started to believe in a curse.
Yeah, it seems like more than just a coincidence.
Totally. But there's one big problem with the curse theory, isn't there?
There is.
What about Howard Carter?
Yeah, he's kind of the exception that disproves the rule.
Right. He was the one who was most involved with the tomb.
Yeah, he was in there all the time handling the artifacts. And he lived for another 17 years after the tomb was opened.
Wow. So he didn't die from a curse.
Nope, he died of natural causes in 1939.
That's a pretty big blow to the curse theory.
It is.
But even though there's no real evidence for a curse, it still captured people's imaginations.
Oh, yeah.
It became a global phenomenon.
It did.
So why do you think people were so drawn to this idea of a curse?
Well, I think there are a few reasons.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it's a really good story.
Yeah.
It's dramatic, it's mysterious, it's got all the elements of a great myth.
Yeah.
And it taps into this kind of primal fear we have.
Of what?
Of disturbing the dead.
Right, like there will be consequences.
Exactly. And I think the timing was also important.
How so?
Well, this was the early 20th century.
Right.
People were really fascinated by ancient Egypt. There were all these exciting discoveries being made. And the curse of the pharaoh just added another layer of intrigue.
Totally. So what are some of the more rational explanations for these deaths?
Well, I think coincidence played a big role.
Okay.
I mean, you have a lot of people involved in this excavation. Over a long period of time, it's statistically likely that some of them are going to die.
Yeah, just from natural causes.
Exactly. And a lot of the people who died were older, or they had health problems.
So they were already more susceptible.
Yeah. And then there's the nocebo effect.
The nocebo effect.
Yeah, that's where you believe something bad is going to happen.
Okay.
And then it actually does.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. So maybe some of these people were so convinced they were cursed that it actually made them sick.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the power of suggestion can be really strong. And then there's the theory about mold or bacteria in the tomb.
Right, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, it's possible that there were harmful microorganisms in the tomb that had been sealed up for thousands of years. And when they opened the tomb, these microorganisms were released.
And they made people sick.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Is there evidence for that in Tutankhamun's tomb?
It's hard to say for sure. The Egyptian climate isn't ideal for all types of mold and bacteria, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. And finally, we can't forget about the role of the media.
Right, they loved a good story.
Yeah.
And they weren't always accurate in their reporting.
So they probably sensationalized things a bit
Oh, yeah.
to make the story more exciting.
Exactly.
So it sounds like the curse was probably a combination of factors.
Yeah, a lot of things probably contributed to it.
So we've talked about Tutankhamun's life, his death, the discovery of his tomb, the curse. But why is he still so famous today?
Well, I think a big part of it is the timing of the discovery.
Okay.
It was 1922, and the world was just fascinated by ancient Egypt. It was this time of great exploration and discovery. And Tutankhamun's tomb was like something out of a movie.
Yeah, it had all the elements of a great adventure story.
Exactly. And the treasures were just incredible.
Yeah, especially the golden mask.
Yeah, it's become this iconic image of ancient Egypt.
It's instantly recognizable.
It really is.
And beyond just the spectacle, the discovery was also really important for our understanding of ancient Egypt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It gave us so much information about their art, their culture, their burial practices. And it's amazing that researchers are still learning new things about Tutankhamun.
Yeah, they're using all sorts of modern technology.
Like what?
DNA testing, CT scans, all sorts of things.
So the story of Tutankhamun is still being written.
It is, yeah.
And for those of us who want to see the treasures from his tomb, where can we go?
Most of them are in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo,
Okay.
but they're actually working on moving them to a new museum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called the Grand Egyptian Museum, and it's going to be near the pyramids at Giza.
Wow, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it should be incredible. And they've also made replicas of his tomb.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so people can experience it without damaging the original.
That's smart.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe there are still more secrets hidden in his tomb.
Maybe.
Our research material mentioned that there might be undiscovered chambers.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
That would be amazing. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Tutankhamun.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
It really was. We talked about his life, his death, the incredible discovery of his tomb, the mysterious curse. And we've seen why he's still such a captivating figure today. So what do you think? What's the most interesting thing about Tutankhamun to you? Is it the treasures, the curse, the mysteries surrounding his death? There's so much to explore. We encourage you to dig deeper into the research material and all the resources that are out there. There's so much to learn about this fascinating period of history. So thank you for joining us on this journey through timeless Egypt. And be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Beyond the Known for more deep dives into the mysteries of our world. We'll see you next time.